The tragic triumph of Apollo 13. On April 11, 1970, three American astronauts launched the Apollo 13 spacecraft from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Tragically, due to hasty means of quality control and improper safety inspections, an oxygen tank exploded. Through the ingenuity of NASA and the astronauts, they were able to triumphantly pilot their crippled spaceship back to Earth. After this, several new protocols were added to NASA's policies, thus ensuring the safety of future missions.
Apollo 13 was supposed to be the third moon landing mission. They were going to survey and sample the Fra Mauro crater. The crew was made up of James Lovell, who had been to space 3 times previously, John Swigert, and Fred Haise, who hadn't ever been to space before. Apollos 11 and 12 had been the first 2 spacecrafts to land on the moon. NASA was a little low on support from the people and the government, so they were in a bit of a hurry to make some form of progress in space. While the US was no longer in the space race with the USSR, the Cold War was still going on, so that also may have contributed to NASA rushing to get to the moon. One of several things that NASA did not properly check was one of the oxygen tanks. This oxygen tank was originally used in Apollo 10, but after it was removed, it was dropped about 2 inches, which later caused a crippling explosion on the Apollo 13 spacecraft.
Apollo 13 was launched on April 11, 1970. They were flying smoothly until a spark in one of the oxygen tanks caused an explosion that blew off half the ship. That led to the famous line from John Swigert, "Houston, we have had a problem here." They left the crippled module and moved into the lunar module. They were going to use the lunar module as a lifeboat, which had never been done before. The lunar module was designed to last 2 men, 2 days, but was used in the Apollo 13 mission to last 3 men, 4 days. They had to conserve food and water in order to prepare for the rest of their trip. Another problem they faced was that carbon dioxide was building up in the capsule. They needed to create a suctioning device to get the carbon dioxide out. They already had the device, but it was square, and they needed to fit it in a round hole. So some people who worked for NASA tried to figure out a solution. They fit a square peg in a round hole with the use of cardboard, duct tape, and an old sock. They finally orbited around the moon and flew back to Earth on April 17, 1970. The trip back was also no picnic. The crew had to endure a very cramped space that was made for 1 less person than was on the ship for twice the time that the ship was made to be used. Also, the temperature remained near freezing the entire trip back.
There were many significant things that happened because of Apollo 13. NASA gained a lot of experience when they saved the Apollo 13 crew. Apollo 13 was the first aborted Apollo mission, and it was the first use of the lunar module as a lifeboat. It established the greatest distance traveled from Earth, 248,655 miles, or 4,376,382 football fields. It also sparked interest for space travel in the American people once again. It set new NASA safety precedents. Bare wires, motors, and flammable materials were not allowed in the presence of pure oxygen. But perhaps the greatest significance was that it brought people together, not only NASA, but also foreign nations, even the Soviet Union. President Nixon said, "I think I can truthfully say that never before in the history of man have more people watched together, prayed together, and rejoiced together than on this occasion." The astronauts did not reach the moon, but they reached the hearts of millions of people on Earth by what they did.
On April 11, 1970, 3 American astronauts launched the Apollo 13 spacecraft from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Tragically, due to hasty means of quality control and improper safety inspections, an oxygen tank exploded. Through the ingenuity of NASA and their astronauts, they were able to triumphantly pilot their crippled spaceship back to Earth. After this, several new protocols were added to NASA's policies, thus ensuring the safety of future missions.
Apollo 13 was very important in setting NASA's safety precedents and uniting nations together for a cause. The near tragedy of the explosion led to the triumph of safely getting the astronauts down to Earth again.